On today's episode, people are sleeping on what Cam Whitmore brings to the table here for the Washington Wizards. We break that all down here on this edition of Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, this is Locked On Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Alongside DC Sports content creating savant and credentialed media member for the Washington Wizards, that's Abdullah Ayyubi. Check him out on Instagram at the DMV Sports Zone page. I'm Ben Strober. I cover all things DC Sports for 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. And joining us once again is the youngest in charge, Lynnell Willingham. Check him out on Twitter at NELL_BTB. Lynnell, did I do that right? You mean you say that every segment, so did I do it well?
It's all good. I think you did a good job of it. I think you did an all right job.
Yeah, for anyone that listens to him on 106.7 The Fan, the host of Overtime, you can catch him on weekends as well. Lynnell will always give out that Twitter handle pretty much every single segment. All right, Lynnell, to start things off with you right here, the addition of Cam Whitmore, which now it's been almost a month, and it feels like forever ago at this point because of how active the offseason has been here for our Washington Wizards after the Summer League finally wraps up a couple days ago. It feels like we've gotten to the point where maybe folks have forgotten about what kind of player they're getting out of the DMV native in Cam Whitmore. Are people already a little bit asleep on what he's going to bring to the table for the Wizards going forward here?
People may be asleep. I think I'm napping a little bit as well. I'm curious to see what type of role he's able to carve out for himself right away. I think training camp and preseason are going to be huge for Cam Whitmore. This is going to be a difficult rotation to crack. There are a lot of guys that are of NBA caliber. They're going to be fighting for minutes. I know he is eligible for a contract extension at season's end, as well as Bilal Coulibaly. I will say this about the extension talk. They're eligible at season's end. Doesn't mean they have to get signed at season's end. So if either Bilal or Cam gets a deal, it kind of will show me, how the team views them moving forward. I think for Cam Whitmore, what he is able to provide this Wizards team is instant offense. When you think about last year and some of the, scoring inefficiencies that they had, felt like Jordan Poole was the only guy all year long that can create shots consistently for himself and others. I think Cam Whitmore is like a microwave offensively. You can put it on the deck, can get to the basket, can score from the three-point line, can make highlight plays in transition, can break the defense down off the bounce. I think the big issue with him, I don't even want to call it an issue, the shortcoming he had and why he's no longer in Houston, he didn't fit their timeline because he was not up to speed on the defensive end of the floor. Ime Udoka, a defensive-minded coach, a guy that teaches that end of the floor really well and is super strict and has high expectations and standards for a guy to crack his rotation. It's a big reason why Reed Sheppard didn't play last year either. But for Cam Whitmore in his 18 and a half minutes that he played last year, thought he fared well for himself. You saw most of his highlights come on the offensive end. In terms of his defense, I don't think he's not a good defender because he doesn't have the physical tools. I think it's a lot from the neck up, having a want to, an understanding of team defense. And I know Brian Keefe and the Wizards are trying to make that really like the focal point of this basketball team. They want to play 5-out offensively and have anybody be able to get it off the defensive glass and push. How do you get it off the defensive glass? You got to get defensive stops first. And I think that's going to be really the most important thing for Cam Whitmore. We know he can score. Everybody knows he can score. But how focused are you going to be on the defensive end? Because I know one thing. He may not have the highest basketball IQ. The three-point shot may not be as sexy or efficient, but Bilal Coulibaly is one of the better defenders already in the NBA when you think about what he does on the perimeter. So I feel like those two guys are going to be battling for a starting spot. I'll make my prediction here in late July. I do not think Cam Whitmore starts for this team this year. I think he's somebody that comes off the bench, maybe post-trade deadline when a couple of more spots open up in the rotation. He's able to do that. But as much as I talk about Cam Whitmore, it gets me thinking about Bilal immediately. It's a big year for him. Year number 3. the first draft pick of this new regime. He has to perform and show legitimate strides on the offensive end in order for that pick to be justified, to be warranted. The big thing for me for Bilal, though, is like, can the offensive efficiency improve? And it's not just about efficiency. It's about basketball IQ as well. There are so many times last year where Bilal's got the defender on his hip and is ready to get downhill but pulls the basketball back because he doesn't know that his guy is beat. I think, him, Alex, all of the young guys on this team have to understand that part of the game, when it's time to attack, when it's time to pull it out and play with the basketball on the perimeter. We'll say this about Bilal. Whatever he turns into or doesn't turn into, it's not going to be because of a lack of work ethic. I think, all of the young cats that they have right now in this core are addicted to the gym. They're gym rats, as a lot of people like to call it. And I feel like no matter how talented you are, when that is the base and the floor of what you're made of and your basketball DNA, so to speak, you have a really good shot to carve out a long-term role in this league, whether it's as a starter on a championship team, a rotational piece on a championship team. I feel good about the young core, and Cam Whitmore being added to that's going to be interesting. But for me, he's got to defend. If he does that, maybe he does get a chance to start. And
do you think, Lynnell, the acquisition of Cam Whitmore does put a little pressure on Bilal Coulibaly to take that year 3 jump offensively, or do you think it's just hey, we need someone and he fits our timeline, is really young as well?
I would say pressure. I think Bilal is their best young cat right now, honestly, like outside of, I guess, Alex R. We ranked this on Overtime the other night, Ben. I actually got to go back to my notes and look at it, but he's sitting here without the list in front of me. I think his two-way ability makes him, a strong candidate to be their best young. I don't know how much pressure he's got on him. He is somebody that eats, breathes, and sleeps basketball. It's all he wants to do is play basketball and play video games. That's what he does. Listens to hip-hop music. At that, I learned that, from getting the chance to interact with him this past year in the locker room. But he, as well as the other youngins, understand what they're tasked with doing right now. This is a bad basketball team that's got a bad reputation and a bad culture around the NBA, and it's on these youngins and this core group to change that narrative around this organization. And a guy like Bilal Coulibaly, was at the forefront of that.
Lynnell, one thing that look through the logs with Cam Whitmore is throughout his 2-year career, he's only played 25 or more minutes in 17 games. One thing that stuck out to me when I listened to Raphael Stone, the general manager of the Houston Rockets, is what he had to say about Cam Whitmore and his departure and why they felt like Washington was a good fit. I'm going to play the audio for everyone real quick, and then I'll follow up with a question. So here's what Raphael Stone, general manager of the Houston Rockets, had to say about Cam Whitmore.
I still believe he very much can do. So I think Cam's insanely talented, really nice young man, and wanted to provide him an opportunity to go home and be in a situation where he could really play through mistakes in a way that we never could afford him just in the iteration of the Rockets that he joined.
Would you like to offers for him as well?
So Lynnell, when you hear this clip, can't afford to make the mistakes here in Houston that he will in DC. Now, with that being said, this logjam that Washington has presented itself on the wing, you mentioned Bilal as part of that equation, but a couple of other guys, Will Riley, who they drafted in the first round this year. With that being said, do you see Whitmore getting the opportunity, even if it's off the bench, to get 20 minutes per game, or is it going to be a situation where the minutes are going to be super far and few between for a bunch of guys?
The buttoned-up basketball answer is that's going to be on Cam. Cam will determine how many minutes Cam gets. One thing I know about Will Dawkins, Brian Keefe, David Vanterpool, the lead assistant, they don't play the guys who compete, who go out and play hard, and who earn minutes. I think Cam, like we just alluded to, is going to have an opportunity to do that based on his offensive skill. He's a little bit further along than some of the other young cats that the Wizards have here in this program. Like I'd say he's further along than Keyshawn George. I think he's further along than Alex Sarr. He's further along than Bub. He's further along than Bilal. So because of his ability to put the ball in the basket, I think he'll get afforded the opportunities. The question is, it goes back to defense. Is he going to lock in? Is he going to, show a toughness and a want to when it comes to fighting over screens and things of that nature? Is he going to communicate and talk on the defensive end? Like I continue to say, we know he can score, but the defense is going to be the thing for me. As far as the opportunities here in DC, it's hard because this roster is going to take so many different shapes and forms throughout the year, pre-All-Star break, the month before the All-Star break when you're trying to showcase your guys, the immediate minutes following the All-Star break. So it's going to be fascinating to see. I think he carves out a rotation, carves out a role rather in the rotation, but like all of a sudden, like the wing spot for the Wizards is interesting when you think about, Will Riley and Bilal and Cam and Chris Middleton. And I know he's on a two-way right now, but Jir Watkins showed a hell of a lot during Summer League and is somebody that, may eventually be able to carve out a role. Justin Champagnie plays there as well. Like, there's just a lot of guys that the Wizards have at that spot. So I don't want to guarantee Cam Whitmore anything, but I don't think you give up. Kind of like to give up a bunch, but it's not like you give up assets to go get a guy to not play him. But I guess my final answer is that'll all be on Cam Whitmore.
And I know you forgot to mention him, but Corey Kispert, Lynnell, do you think he's going to be on the roster? I'm really surprised that he's still on this roster post-draft night.
I feel like they're holding out hope that they're going to get a deal better than what they've already received. For a guy like Corey Kispert, it made me chuckle. I think I saw you guys talking about it during the Brooklyn broadcast. Will Dawkins came on the ESPN broadcast. It's like, yeah, Corey Kispert, veteran part. Corey Kispert doesn't defend. So it automatically puts him as like a outsider to me when it comes to this young core who they want to move forward with. The shooting percentages to start the year last year were not very good for Corey. Credit to him, though. He stuck with it and finished the season shooting the ball a lot better than what he started with. But ultimately, I think for Kispert, like, can he be a part of a rotation on a championship team with his inability to defend? And I hate harping on that because he does a lot of great things offensively outside of the shooting. I think he moves really well without the basketball. If you look at the splits in terms of how he finishes at the rim, he's amongst the best at the guard spot that comes off the bench. So he's an interesting case to me. I do like his I don't know if you saw his social media series on Instagram where he goes out and, tests coffee in every city. Ben, I say it to you all the time. I've never had coffee before in my life. I know the Locked On audience is going to eat that up.
Not once, Lynnell?
Not one time have I had coffee in my life.
Like never. A Frappuccino? Like not even that either?
Never. No frap. Not a Starbucks guy.
Real quick for the Lockdown audience here. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Lynnell, we'll leave you on this final question right here because you segued us with Jir Watkins right there, and you were able to touch on what you thought he did throughout this summer league. Just pure defensively, so good in the summer league. I know he's on the two-way contract, which limits his capabilities and games he can play throughout the regular season. Do you feel like he's a guy that you could actually slot in on the roster right now and he'd give you quality minutes in the regular season, or does he need more work for you?
Gosh, it's tough because summer league, you're obviously not going against the offensive talent that you're going to see, from October to May during the regular season. But I think his effort, the want to, the rebounding, I thought was good as well too. There's a couple of hustle plays where he's diving on the floor. It's gonna be tough. Correct me. I think there are a lot of two-way slots, so he's definitely gonna fill three of them.
They got Vuk, Jalen Martin, and Watkins on the two-ways right now.
Yeah, I think Watkins honestly has the most upside of the guys that are on the two-way. I'm a big Tristan Vukovic fan though, and I think if he can get some of this, some heart, it'll be really good. I think he's a little bit soft, but that comes from being a young, big man that hadn't dealt with a lot of contact in his career. Maybe it'll be a situation to me like Justin Champagnie last year. Like I think he'll get called up at times. There are injuries that are going to happen. There's so many things that can shake up an NBA rotation throughout the season where I don't get too worried about what the opening night roster looks like. But I do think because he possesses those values and traits that this organization wants, it would kind of be like not a slap in the face, but I'm trying to make the comparison to the Commanders where they can't get Terry under contract, but Terry does everything they want. If Jir Watkins comes in and is cooking for the go-go and is playing good defense, and you're not going to reward him with NBA minutes, if I'm another guy in the G League, I'm looking like, hey, why do I need to bust my ass? Why do I need to go hard in the paint, so to speak, to earn minutes if Jalen's not, or excuse me, if Jameer's not? So I forgot.
Nah, you're good. You're good. You need to get away with that on here.
For sure.
Lynnell, pleasure as always. Always
Sure.
Insightful to have you here, part of the Lockdown Wizards family. Enjoy the rest of your night, my friend.
Yes, indeed. Programming note for our Locked On audience. Tomorrow night, 6:35 Eastern time on 106.7 The Fan as well. Streaming live on X and YouTube. We'll have Wizards guard Bub Carrington in studio with me, promoting his camp and his Breaking Chains organization. He's a DMV guy through and through, and in his second year, finding a way to pay it forward in terms of how you can help out the community.
There you go. If you're sick of Abdullah and I, go check out Lynnell's show tomorrow night on Overtime on 106.7 The Fan. You'll get to hear Bub Carrington himself speak with Lynnell, so that will be exciting. Everyone should be tuned into that. When we come back here on Locked On Wizards, we'll talk a little bit more here about Cam Whitmore and some of this young core, and then we'll get into some beef that has arose on Twitter between Wizards and Hornets fans. What in the world's going on with that? We'll talk about it next here on Locked On Wizards. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, we're back here on Locked On Wizards. Shout out to our guy, Lynnell.
Dude,
Willingham.
Lynnell is a character, man. I love him.
Oh, my God. He always finds a way to make it entertaining on here. So if you haven't tuned into him on the radio on 106.7 The Fan, maybe tonight, by the time this airs, it'll be a good time to listen to hear him with Bub Carrington. That'll be really special. Hopefully, Abdullah, you and I can get a player on here at some point. Yesterday, we had Chris Miller. So if you missed that episode, be sure to go back and check out the episode from the day before. Chris Miller, play-by-play voice of the Washington Wizards, got to join us. And he was all in on this youth movement. And while we have the time, Abdullah, maybe we could just touch on some of the observations from that conversation yesterday with Chris Miller. One of the things he talked about was the competitive nature that he saw from the organization while he was down in Vegas covering the Summer League, what practices looked like. And Lynnell talked about how competition is going to be so important for a guy like Cam Whitmore. What we know about the Wizards and what their practices have looked like here, part of this new regime with Will Dawkins and Michael Winger and the head coach, Brian Keefe. You and I have talked a lot about potential pressure on Brian Keefe coming to the season. I feel like he's done a hell of a job instilling this competitive nature to this point where, if they're losing games at this point, which we expect them to lose plenty of games in the upcoming season because of the top 8 protected pick, it's not necessarily going to be a him problem. One, it's because maybe they're still lacking talent. And not to say they don't have talent on the roster. They're just not ready to prosper officially yet because they are still working on things. They're in a much lower risk situation right now. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of shapes up. But I really like to hear the idea of how competitive the team is going to be, how tough it's going to be to earn your spot within this roster. I think that's exactly what they needed. With that being said, Abdullah, is there anyone that stands out from the team last year you feel like that showcased to you throughout the regular season they have the dog in them to compete in the environment the Wizards have created here? And I'm not putting you on the spot right here, but I feel like you got an answer. You always do.
Yeah, definitely. I think Keyshawn George, your guy, Ben, not only showed it in the last regular season, but Summer League. I mean, again, 5 steals a game before 20 points, took it to the chest of Colin Malawach, told him to get in the weight room, went coast to coast. I think he's going to have a big year. His 3-point shot, he's going to get better at taking it to the rim. That's one thing that I wanted to see going into his second year in the NBA. I'm excited about him, his situation here. I think starting him at the 4, putting Bilal at the 3, and then the log jam that we have at the wing, like I mentioned, I also like Justin Champagnie, Ben. I think from his transition from the Capital City Go-Go to the Wizards, he provided some meaningful games last season. And Corey Kispert, Keyshawn, Cam Whitmore, a surplus of wings, it's a good thing, but it's crazy to think about, Ben, because there's going to be a point where we go to the rotation going into the opening night and say, hey, either Kispert, Riley, or Champagnie aren't going to get that many minutes. So it's crazy because I always go back to the point where a year ago or even longer than that, we were talking about how there wasn't too much talent on this roster, but now we have a surplus of it. So it's amazing. It's a good problem to have. But one thing I want to see, Ben, I'll keep reiterating it because as much as we talk about this young, talented team, the youth movement, we want to see results. I know we're not going to win that many games this year. We clearly have mentioned that so many times. But you got to be competitive. I don't want to see a 2-16 game losing streak. I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't want to see getting blown out by 50 at home and the opposing team's best player getting MVP chance. I understand it comes from I want to see our team win, then I'll go at 10 games. But at the end of the day, you see the vision, and I think it's going to be just fine. We're going to be so much more competitive this year. To give a number, I don't know yet. I want to say 23 or 25. But also, Brendan, brings me up to the question, if that draft pick, that top pick protected, wasn't a thing, would have that changed the perspective of how much pressure Coach Keefe is going to face this upcoming year when it comes to winning?
I don't think it would put really pressure on him. I think maybe there'd be more of a basis to evaluate him as a head coach on, because even though the top 8 protected pick does hang as this kind of umbrella, or maybe I'm not going to say a black cloud, because a first round draft pick is super important to have, but the fact that it kind of limits how good you want to be as a team. And I know there's some people out there saying, screw them picks. We want to win basketball games. And I totally get that. Like I'm on board with that idea, because I do want to win basketball games, but I do have reservations with the idea of losing the pick. If that were the case, I don't think that really changes a whole lot. Maybe there's like a less of an ethical tank job that happens, especially later in the season. I'm not sure if maybe some of the guys on two ways, like maybe that's when you gave your minutes there to Jir Watkins, Jalen Martin. Have them go out there and try to work on things, and it probably translates to more losses, because you're just kind of, going through the motion, not going through the motions, but, going through the work in progress that is the development of a lot of these NBA players. I don't know if it would really make that much of a difference in the win total, because with the current roster in place, just how young they are, not necessarily because of how good I think they can be a year or two from now, just because where they are in terms of age right now and development, I don't think they would win over 30 games. I don't. And I know a lot of people have said that they could definitely flirt with the play next year because of how bad the East is. I don't really see that in the realm of possibilities. And that's not a knock on where I think the organization is heading right now, because they're in a position where, with the top 8 protected pick, like this is the expectation. This is what's going to happen. I feel like the blueprint that's been set in stone by a lot of these NBA organizations is the rebuilds usually are about 3 years of losing. In fact, the Houston Rockets, who dealt us Cam Whitmore, after they went through the stretch with James Harden for so many years, where they were consistently finding themselves in the upper echelon of the NBA, competing in the Western Conference, going toe-to-toe with Golden State in the postseason for so many years. Once they got into that rebuild, it was 3 straight seasons of really bottoming out before they finally kind of cracked the surface of what they could be, went 41-41 2 years ago. And then last year, they went over 50 games for the first time in 7 years. Now, the Wizards haven't won 50 games in, 46 years?
So we're 21-22, so just imagine, that's double our lifespan.
Yeah, so quite the difference there for what the Wizards are trying to accomplish in that feat. But I think the blueprint has been shown that the rebuilds usually are around 3 years. So after this upcoming season, I think that's when the expectations will really start to grow for this organization. You just have to hope that you see enough good things, enough positive notes that come with development from this year that give you confidence in Brian Keefe and someone else going forward. But I mean, there have been teams in the past where the upbringing came with somebody else at the helm, and then another coach is brought in to get them over the top. And is that a situation we see with Brian Keefe? I don't know, but I think certainly he said all the right things, and he's instilled the right mentality for these young players right now. So as it stands, I have no reason to believe that Brian Keefe can't be the head coach 5 years from now, when this team is hopefully competing for championships, competing in the Eastern Conference. I've got no reason to believe he can't, but maybe I'll be proven otherwise in a couple of years. It's just really too early to put any kind of pressure on him like that.
And I think the one thing we keep mentioning is that this rebuild is different. Will Dawkins mentions there's no shortcuts. A lot of you guys in the past or previous Wizards regimes where you would trade young guys for vets and barely make the playoffs and lose in the first round. But it's different this time. Will Dawkins is taking his time. We saw that in that summer league interview mid-game. So I'm excited for it. And I have so much faith in Coach Keefe. I think the plate that he was dealt with, he's over time, he's going to get better as a coach. And we'll just see how he does, picking up from Wes Unseld and the mess that was created with the Bradley Beal contract. It was a team effort. So I can't wait to see how he coaches this upcoming year. And remember, he was a big part of Kevin Durant's development in OKC. And I love how we always talk about OKC. At least I do. I always refer back to OKC, but they just won a championship. So it's nice to be compared to a team like that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, as we get to the final segment here for Locked On Wizards, Abdul, there's been a recent Twitter beef, which I feel like has been the theme of 2025, and not just sports. I feel like all over, in all kinds of realms, Twitter beefs have been all over the place because that's the kind of world that we live in at this point. But Twitter beef has struck Wizards Nation. What in the world is going on with that? We'll tell you on Locked On Wizards. Abdul, I don't even know what percentage of our audience actively uses the Twitter or X app, whatever you want to call it right now, but there is a major beef between Wizards and Hornets fans about who is the better organization, and the two are going back and forth, taking shots at one another, bringing up facts such as the Wizards being 5-0 in the last 5 times the Wizards have played the Hornets. Hornets fans will now bring up the Summer League championship from this year, saying, you don't got a ring this decade. And the Wizards fans saying, you don't have one ever. And then they post the Summer League championship ring. But what the hell? What are we doing? Like, what is going on with this? Why are Wizards and Hornets fans beefing? Like, we should be together because we've been at the basement forever. Like, why are we beefing about who is the better, terrible organization? This doesn't make any sense to me, Abdul. Like, do you understand what's happening with this?
Yeah, I think it's dumb. It's like seeing two little kids fight each other. Like what are we doing here? Like, we gotta get up there with the big dogs. And I get it, winning Summer League is cool, but like being that thrilled about it, it's something that you could definitely build on. But to flex on it, like what are we doing? To me, it doesn't make any sense. As Wizards fans, we got to do better. We got to ignore these Hornets fans. I know people will mention that the Wizards are a poverty franchise, but the Charlotte Hornets, Bobcats, I mean, oh my goodness. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist ruining Kemba Walker's prime years. That fan that was trying to taunt D Wade and they ultimately lost that series. You put all that together, they really make the Wizards look like a functional organization pre-Will Dawkins era. So I think it's dumb, Ben. Like why? Like, why do we're more? We got to emphasize more on the youth movement here. Why the fudge are we debating with Hornets fans? They won the Summer League. Let's throw them a cookie or something. Like, I don't know. I think it's dumb. And I didn't even know before we recorded. You mentioned that we're going to talk about that. I'm like, what beef? But as soon as I upload on X, I see so much on my timeline about, that we're better than the Hornets. Like, what are we doing here, guys?
There's one thing, like, Wizards fans and Hornets fans, I don't know if they're going to try to make this an in-season rivalry thing. For one, the players could probably care less about a Twitter beef amongst fans and fan accounts, for that matter, that are going toe-to-toe with this beef. I'll put in air quotes. It will never be a rivalry because what are the rules of a rivalry, Abdullah? Both the teams need to be good. There's no such thing as a rivalry where both the teams are trash. That's not a thing.
Ben, it's like that meme, you know, when those clowns are fighting in the basketball court.
Yeah, you said like that is what it is. The Wizards fans and Hornets fans right now going at it. Who is the better trash organization? Hey, but Wizards were on the come up, so maybe that's the argument we're trying to make. We're trying to be a real organization now, because it's been a dark past. Really, I don't know, 6
with the
7
capital
years.
D.
It's been nuts. Oh my gosh. But I just thought it was funny that we could touch on this thing that's been happening on social media. Not that it even really matters, but if you're watching this video right now, are you taking notice of this at all on social media? Do you use social media? I don't even know. Let us know in the comments.
Let's start the Con Canipo Trey Johnson comparison. We'll see how they do the rookie seasons, because these Hornets fans are probably so high off their high horse off the Summer League title, they probably think Con Canipo's already better than Cooper Flag.
I mean, Con Knippel did show out in the summer league, but so did Trey Johnson. He only got to play in 2 games. So, as Chris Miller said yesterday, he really likes the proponent of Trey Johnson winning the Rookie of the Year award. That'll be something that we keep an eye on all season long. That'll do it today here on Locked On Wizards. We want to thank our guy, Lynnell Willingham, for joining us today. And we thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there's no off season. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. For my co-host right there, host of the DMV Sports Zone page, Abdul Ayyubi, I'm Ben Strober. We sign off. Go Wizards.